You call yourself a healer of the unseen, a vessel for invisible wounds, and the wind murmurs back to you. Yes, you are needed. You are told your tenderness is medicine. Your tears are offerings. Your ache is holy. You have learned to open your heart like a cathedral to every lost soul seeking sanctuary. And so you do. You let the broken kneel at your altar. You let the aching sip from your marrow. You call this compassion. You name this gift. You say, I feel what others hide. I see through masks. I carry what others cast away. But child of depth, there is a price for this vow of feeling, and the soul always remembers what the mind forgets. Before we begin, take a moment to like and subscribe. The more you engage and stay with the content, the more YouTube shares these timeless insights with others. By doing so, you're not only helping this channel grow, but also spreading Carl Jung's transformative wisdom to those seeking meaning and inner truth. Let's dive into the depth of the psyche together. There is a silence that follows those who have given too much. A silence not of peace, but of depletion. And you, dear one, carry that silence like a second skin. You've mistaken empathy for redemption, self-erasure for love. You have become fluent in other people's wounds, but illiterate in your own. There is a sorrow in that, a quiet betrayal that echoes beneath every yes you utter when your body aches to say no. You call yourself sensitive, but sensitivity without sovereignty becomes sacrifice. You believe you are loving, but what if your love is a mask for fear that if you stop giving, you will be abandoned? Fear that if you stop listening, your own voice will scream. Fear that if you stop holding others, you will crumble under the weight of what you never held for yourself. This is the ache, beneath the ache, the archetypal wound of the orphan, the priestess forgotten by her own temple, the child whose gift was never protected. And now, you wander through relationships like a lantern in the dark, searching not to illuminate others, but to remember your own face. There is danger here, not the sharp kind that cuts, but the soft kind that erodes, the danger of becoming useful, of becoming spiritual currency for those who cannot feel themselves. And when your gift goes unnamed, unguarded, it becomes food not for demons in the night, but for ancient patterns that have learned to feed on your light. They come not as monsters, but as lovers, not as abusers, but as those who just need you. They come in the form of every soul you feel destined to fix. But you do not fix, you merge, and in merging, you vanish. I once dreamed of a cavern beneath the sea, where empaths gathered with open arms and hollow chests. They were luminous, glowing with other people's sorrows, but none of them remembered their own name. I awoke breathless, and I knew the wound of the empath is not that they feel too much, but that they never learned where they end and the world begins. There is an ancient law written into the soul's architecture. What is not integrated becomes fate. What you do not bring to light will rule you from the shadows. And so the healer becomes the host for the very archetypes they seek to liberate. The mother who cannot stop mothering, even when she's breaking. The guide who leads others through thresholds she herself has never crossed. The listener who has never dared to speak. You see, every archetype is a two-edged blade. The nurturer becomes the martyr. The mystic becomes the exile. The empath becomes the ghost. And if you wear these roles too long, they will consume you. Not all at once, but gradually, like ivy wrapping around stone. Until one day, you forget how to exist outside the ache of others. But there is a way through, and it begins not with more feeling, but with fierce discernment. It begins when you stop asking, who needs me? And start asking, what do I need? It begins when you turn toward your own silence and meet the parts of you still waiting to be claimed. The abandoned anger, the orphaned power, the sacred selfishness that dares to say, I matter too. To reclaim the self is to step out of the archetype and into the soul. It is to stop mistaking exhaustion for purpose, to stop conflating empathy with enmeshment. It is to know that boundaries are not barriers, they are prayers in the shape of edges. They are spells that say, I am whole. I am not your savior. I am not your shadow's shelter. I am my own sanctuary first. When the empath turns inward, the healing begins. Not the kind of healing that sparkles or seduces, the raw kind, the kind that breaks before it builds, the kind that reveals how much of your life has been spent performing connection while bypassing intimacy with yourself. But you must walk this path, because the truth is this: you cannot offer presence if you are absent to yourself. You cannot hold space if you are always vanishing. And as you begin this work, this sacred, gritty, terrifying work, you will feel everything again. But differently. No longer porous. You will feel with precision, no longer entangled. You will feel with integrity, no longer possessed. You will feel with power. You will begin to see that true empathy is not drowning in another's ocean. It is knowing how to swim beside them without forgetting the taste of your own breath. I have seen many return from this descent, some shattered, some silent, all more whole. They come back not as saviors, but as sovereigns. They carry not just light, but fire, not just compassion, but clarity. They have wept for themselves. They have walked through the forest of projection and come out naming their needs like sacred herbs. They no longer seek to be needed. They seek to be known. So now, dear soul, if you find yourself trembling at the threshold of this truth, do not retreat. Your suffering was never weakness. It was initiation. The ache was the opening. The fatigue was the oracle. The pattern was the portal. And now you stand at the edge of yourself, holding the mirror and the sword. This is your moment. To choose the sacred over the sacrificial, to reclaim your voice from the whispering ghosts, to become not the empath the world consumes, but the empath who remains whole. Now, if your spirit has stirred in this invocation, if your own mirror has fogged in recognition, I invite you into a final act, a symbolic gesture, a ritual through number. In the space below, leave a single number not random, but resonant. Let it rise from the deep well of your own truth. Let it signify what most echoed within you. Leave down 1, if you are ready to begin the journey of individuation to become whole, not hollow. Leave 3 if you felt the pull of the sacred feminine or sacred masculine reclaiming voice through you. Leave a 5 if you are shedding the martyr and stepping into sovereign empathy. Leave 7 if you have known the void and are learning to love what it has to teach. Leave 9 if you have walked through collapse and now rise as the wounded healer who finally turns inward. Let your number be more than a comment. Let it be a candle lit in the cave of the collective. Let it be your soul saying, I see, I feel, I remember, and I choose to return to myself. With it, you become a temple, a space where others may be seen, but not at the cost of your own vision, a field where pain may be felt, but not where your soul is sacrificed. This is a deeper calling of the empath, not to be good, but to be whole. Not to be loved, but to be known. Not to rescue, but to remember. Remember. Remember who you were before you learned to disappear into other people's needs. Remember who you were before the archetype of the healer took hold of your nervous system. Remember that feeling deeply does not mean you must carry what was never yours. You were not born to bleed for others. You were born to become yourself. And that self, it includes your pain. It includes your anger. It includes your enough. The empath, when integrated, becomes a force not soft, but sharp, not passive, but potent, not reactive, but radiant. You no longer dim your truth to keep others comfortable. You no longer shrink in the presence of pain. You stand in it, with it, and because of that, others find their own strength, not by feeding on yours, but by remembering their own. This is the paradox of true empathy, that by feeling less of others, you become more available to them, because you are no longer entangled. You are no longer fused. You are no longer losing your life force every time someone cries. You are rooted, and in that rootedness, something ancient stirs. The archetypal healer awakens not the wounded child playing savior, but the elder soul who knows to love others. I must first contain myself. You will not find this teaching in praise or sentiment. You will not be celebrated for saying no. You will not be applauded when you walk away from chaos, but your soul will know. It will breathe again. It will expand. It will remember. And then, so will you. The soul that feels too much is often praised as holy. But I tell you, this unchecked empathy becomes a subtle form of possession, not by spirits in the folkloric sense, but by complexes, emotionally charged psychic fragments that split off when pain cannot be integrated. These fragments develop lives of their own, hijacking your choices, attaching to your relationships, animating your behaviors without your awareness. And the empath is especially vulnerable to this fragmentation because their psychic boundaries are not firm walls, but trembling veils. You believe you are helping, but are you? Or are you repeating? You find yourself pulled towards the same archetype again and again. The wounded child, the broken lover, the angry soul. No one else dares to touch, you say. I see the good in them, but what you see is a projection. It is the exiled part of yourself, the unmet innocence, the silenced voice, the abandoned rage that you have draped over them. You do not love them as they are. You love what you hope they will become. And in this act of hope, you deny reality. You turn your back on the very truth that would set you free. There is danger here. The danger of spiritual bypassing, of mistaking your pain for intuition. The danger of psychic enmeshment, of believing that love means losing the self. The danger of archetypal inflation, where the healer becomes an identity, so inflated it collapses under its own weight. The empath, who does not turn inward, becomes consumed by outward need. You will find yourself exhausted, not from caring, but from forgetting yourself entirely. And then you will wonder why your joy is gone, why your body aches, why your dreams turn dark. It is because you have become the sacrificial lamb of your own psyche, bleeding for causes that never asked to be yours. The unconscious does not care about your intentions. It cares about your integrity. If your empathy becomes your escape from facing your own darkness, it will turn on you, gently. At first fatigue, small betrayals, unspoken resentment, then more loudly illness, addiction to emotional drama, sudden collapses of trust. Eventually, the very people you tried to save will become the mirrors of your disowned parts. And if you refuse to see this, they will turn cold or cruel, or they will disappear. And you will be left holding the grief of not being chosen again. But this grief is not new. It is ancestral. It is archetypal. It is the grief of the inner child who fell too much and had nowhere to place it. The grief of the inner priestess who was punished for seeing what others denied. The grief of the old soul who mistook empathy for destiny, forgetting that even the sacred must rest, must rage, must be whole. I once saw in a vision a woman made of water, beautiful, translucent, shimmering with love. Wherever she walked, Flowers bloomed. People knelt before her and drank from her. But slowly, the woman began to sin. Her hands disappeared, and then her legs, then her face. And the people kept drinking, and she let them until there was nothing left but a puddle, and the puddle whispered. But I gave them life, and in the silence no one answered. This is the fate of the unawakened empath, to disappear and call it service, to bleed and call it light, to drown and call it love. But your soul was not born to be consumed. It was born to incarnate, to take form, to remember. And so I ask you now, not as a prophet, but as a mirror. Where have you disappeared? Into whom have you poured yourself? And what would it mean to gather your waters back into yourself? Empathy is not meant to empty you. It is meant to reveal you, not the you that others use, but the you that chooses. And to choose you must confront your shadow, the part of you that resents the very people you love, the part of you that manipulates through kindness, the part of you that says yes when your body screams no. These are not sins, they are signals. They are cries for your return. You must be willing to stop playing the saint. You must be willing to see that your sensitivity without sovereignty is a leash, that your caring without consciousness is a cage, that your love without discernment becomes codependency dressed in white. And yes, it will hurt to dismantle the identity, to stop saying I am the one who helps, to start asking, what do I truly need, because you have needed for so long and not dared to name it. You have longed for so long and not dared to claim it. You have been so trained to abandon yourself that when love finally comes, you do not recognize it, because it does not require your sacrifice. But real love never does. It does not need your pain as proof. It does not require your tears to feel valid. It simply meets you not as what you give, but as who you are willing to become, and you cannot become if you are always disappearing. So begin now. Begin with your rage. Begin with your exhaustion. Begin with the part of you that is tired of being good, tired of being needed, tired of being everything to everyone. That part of you is not your weakness. It is your threshold. It is the guardian at the gate, the final voice before you cross into wholeness. Listen. Let it rise. Let it burn. Let it speak the truth you have buried beneath. I am fine. You are not fine. You are unfinished. You are sacred. You are sovereign. You are more than your empathy. You are more than your pain. You are more than the role the world assigned to you. You are self-unfolding, breaking open, remembering. And if you follow that thread inward, if you sit with your shadow and do not run, you will begin to feel something you have not felt in years. Yourself. To feel yourself again is both resurrection and death. It is resurrection because you reanimate the parts that have been frozen in performance and sacrifice. It is death because the persona, the mask of the eternal empath, the one who exists to soothe, to rescue, to absorb, must now fall away, and you will grieve that fall because the mask was loved. It was needed. It earned you closeness, it spared you confrontation, but it also cost you your center. You will miss being wanted for your giving. You will miss the subtle power that came with always being available. But you will not miss the hollowness. You will not miss the collapse after another energetic rescue. You will not miss the silence you endured in order to stay lovable, because now your body no longer tolerates self-abandonment. Your nervous system rebels against the lie. Your dreams show you what your mouth still dares not speak. This is the initiation, the place where archetypal energy begins to shift inside you, not by force, but by recognition. You do not destroy the inner empath. You mature it. You bring it back from the edge of martyrdom. You restore its roots in discernment, sovereignty, and self-love. And that which once used you now serves you. Your sensitivity becomes precision. Your intuition becomes boundary. Your heart becomes a compass. Not a prison, but beware. As you shift, the world you once served may resist your transformation. The broken souls you once attracted may rage against your silence. Those who fed on your overfunctioning will sense that you are no longer edible. And some will call it selfish. Some will say you have changed, and they are right. You are no longer an offering. You are a force. And forces do not explain themselves. They move, they rise, they take up space. I remember a man who came to me in torment. He was a therapist, beloved by his clients, praised for his attunement, but he could not sleep. His dreams were haunted by images of drowning. He wept for strangers. He had no language for his own grief. When I asked about his childhood, his face stiffened. That's not relevant. He said, but the unconscious never lies. In his dreams, he was always saving others while his own house burned. That was his secret. He could feel everyone's pain, but not his own, and it was killing him slowly. This is the empire's unspoken wound, the denial of self in the name of service. But what is service if it costs your soul? What is healing if it leaves you fractured through empathy? Like true love begins at home. You cannot carry the world if your own spine is broken. You cannot hold another's tears if your own are locked behind your throat. And so I say to you, weep. Weep for every moment you disappeared in someone else's chaos. Weep for the childhood role you never asked for. Weep for the touch you needed but never received. And then let those tears become your water of return. The return to body, the voice to choice, to the sacred responsibility of living as your full self. Not just your light, not just your softness, but your fire. Empath, fear, fire. You fear that anger will make you cruel, that desire will make you dangerous, that saying no will make you unkind. But this is the lie told to keep you small. Your fire is not destruction, it is discernment. It burns away illusion. It lights the path back to yourself. And without it, you are only shadowed light glowing for others while you disappear. There is no virtue in that the unconscious does not reward self-denial. It waits. It stores what you abandon. It buries what you are not ready to see. And then it erupts through illness, through depression, through a sudden collapse of meaning. These moments are not breakdowns. They are revolts. The psyche demanding its due. The self saying, you will not leave me behind. So do not run from the revolt. Let it wash over you. Let it strip you bare of every false duty, every spiritualized trauma bond, every identity that kept you loved but not alive. Let it crack the mirror in which you only ever saw others, never yourself. And in the shards of that mirror you will see it, the eye that has always been watching, the watcher behind the feelings, the self beneath the rose, the eternal witness. That is who you are, not the empath, not the savior, not the broken magnet. You are the self becoming conscious, and from that consciousness comes power. Not power over others, but power over your own soul. Power to choose who enters your field. Power to hold presence without collapse. Power to walk away from stories that no longer serve. And this power, it feels like death at first, because it is the death of the small self. The self who earned love through self-betrayal. The self who feared anger more than violation. The self who believed that being loved meant being used. Let that self die. Mourn her. Honor her. She did what she could, but now it is time for you to live. To walk into the archetypal fire and emerge not cleansed, but claimed. This is what the world needs. Not more empaths who disappear into other people's wounds, but whole beings who can hold space without losing themselves. Be that, and when they come, those who still seek your old shape, look at them not with guilt, but with grace. Thank them. They were your teachers, your mirrors. They showed you who you no longer wish to be. And then release them and step forward into your new myth. The one where you are not the sacrifice. You are the source. This new myth begins not with a proclamation, but with silence. Not the silence of repression, but the sacred hush that follows truth fully spoken, for once you have called your patterns by name, once you have walked into your own underworld and returned with your forgotten voice, there is nothing more to prove. The war is over. You are no longer at the mercy of your own empathy. You are no longer pulled like a tide toward every wounded soul. You feel them, yes, but you are not them. You can see suffering without becoming it. You can stand in presence without collapse. This is the quiet strength of the integrated empath. The ability to remain open without being emptied, loving without being consumed, receptive without being overrun. There is a dignity now in your sorrow, a shape to your compassion, a border around your kindness. You give but no longer at the cost of your spine. You listen but no longer become the echo. You love but now from fullness, not from a desperate need to matter. This is the great reversal. What once drained you now empowers you. What once broke you now becomes your boundary. And the broken souls still come as they always will. But they do not stay, for something in your new presence tells them this one is not for possession. This one no longer bleeds on command. This one is lit from within. You begin to attract not the ones who need you to save them, but the ones who have saved themselves. Souls who are not looking for a rescuer, but a mirror. Not to complete them, but to reflect what they have become. And in this a sacred dance begins no longer a looping trauma, but a spiral of growth. You see, individuation is not separation. It is union through distinction. The empath who knows their shadow becomes a bridge, not a sponge. You do not lose your sensitivity. You refine it. You do not lose your depth. You direct it. You become an embodied soul. And the soul embodied becomes medicine. Not the kind you force upon others, but the kind that radiates simply by being. You become misincarnate. Not because you are perfect, but because you are whole. You are no longer waiting to be seen. You see yourself. You are no longer waiting to be healed. You tend to your own wound. You are no longer waiting for permission. You are already initiated. And when the old urges return, and they will, you will know them not as failures, but as echoes. You will feel the pull to fix, to fold, to disappear. And instead of obeying, you will pause. You will breathe. You will remember, I am no longer that story. I no longer trade my soul for love. You will rise from the inside out, and the world will respond. Some will leave those who fed on your absence. Some will resist those who knew only your servitude. But the ones who stay, the ones who now arrive, will bow not to your pain, but to your presence. They will meet you in the space you once hid. And there a new world begins, a world where empathy is not currency, but communion. A world where sensitivity is not suffering, but strength. A world where the empath becomes sovereign. And from that sovereignty becomes truly able to love. And so the warning has become an awakening. What began as darkness has become clarity, not by denying the shadow, but by dancing with it, not by silencing the pain, but by singing it into form. You are not what happened to you. You are what you chose to become. You are not the road the world wrote for you. You are the myth you are now writing. And this myth is not about bleeding. It is about becoming. So gather your waters, old soul. Speak you know with love. Let go of the ones who only loved your weakness and return to the seat of your own being, to the temple within your chest, to the fire that never needed permission. This is your self, and the self once remembered cannot be forgotten. So walk, roll, sin, rooted, loved by you.